Jonny Fluffypunk poetry show. We got rhythms to take away, rhymes to go. We got stuff about familiar things and stuff you didn't know. This is the Jonny Fluffypunk poetry show. Yeah. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, depending on where you are. Delete as applicable. Here it is a blustery morning. I am in my newly constructed art shed studio. I brought my own audience, my own lockdown audience. They're a bit wooden, but they're enthusiastic. These are unemployed puppets from a children's show of mine, and yeah, they're keeping us. They keep us company. Yeah, my name is Jonny Fluffypunk. As I said, this is it's a stupid name. I can blame my mum. But it does kind of sum up the ongoing internal dichotomy, which is just identity crisis. If anyone out there listening is a bit more Heart FM than Radio 4. It's a poetry show, so unlikely. In the one hand, I carry the tattered black flag of anarchy. It normally gets a sort of muted cheer from the audience at that point. To imagine that. In the other hand, the packet of unsalted rice cakes, the Tibetan goatskin wind chime, and the Gloucestershire Council library card. I've settled for the middle path between the two, that of the sustainable nihilist. So far the only poet of that school. I'm going to start off with a poem, a love poem. That's what we're here for, the poetry, love poem. Poets very good at love poems, one of the classic themes. I won't drop you in at the deep end with a love poem for a human. We'll start with a love poem for a beverage. Anyone out there a coffee drinker? Hands up. Stick your hands up, have a look around you, look at the people, look at the caffeine fuel. Hands straight up in the air, beautiful, strong coffee people. Do we have tea drinkers? Tea drinkers out there? A lower form of beverage, all round. Controversial view, but I stick by it. During the day, I'm actually a barley cup drinker. I'm aware a lot of people might not have heard of barley cup. If you haven't heard of it, barley cup is a hot instant cereal based beverage, much beloved by those who've got a dietary intolerance to pleasure and satisfaction. Get it from the health food shop. In the mornings though, I drink coffee. I need coffee to wake me up, to gear me up for the day, and so I'm going to start with a love poem. I've just seen, I've left my cup of coffee. I'm going to grab my cup of coffee because we can then address it, get the focus of the love poem. Here we are. A love poem to coffee. You are more special than the special of special brew. You are the taste of new day dawning. You are the dark Guatemalan hanging round my breakfast bar. You are like a bomb without a warning. You are domestos in my tired veins, beneath the rim of tired brain. I can't complain, you keep me sane. You are like an army turned to liquid, and you're waging war on yawning. You are my croissant's perfect lover. You are my cup of electric wet. If I drink you before I go to sleep, then sleep becomes at once a very outside bet. Coffee, let me smell you. Coffee, let me spell you. See, come alive at your hot kiss. This is an acrostic bit. Oh, so much better than tea. Controversial. Actually looks easy, lines like that, doesn't it? Oh, so much better than tea. 3 years. 3 years of a creative writing degree. Takes to come up with lines like that. It's trained. F 3 cups before 9. F, forget tea. Look, hammering it home. Look, that is actually a ruder word beginning with F in this book, but I distance myself from that. I don't agree with swearing in poetry. I didn't come up with that line. I performed this poem at a gig, a reading in Oxford, of all places, the Dreaming Spires, the Intelligentsia. I did it at a gig in Oxford, threw the mysteries of the poetry out to the audience, and that's what they came up with. F, rude word, T. Now, I'm sure wherever you're sat listening to this, you can come up with better things than that. If you want to join in with the poetry process, here is your chance to insert a line beginning with F, anything to do with coffee, okay, an F to do with coffee, F, you might have come up with frothy or freight, anything, fair trade. Anyway, back to the poem. E, energy gravel. That's a metaphor for anyone new to poetry, okay? The coffee beans full of energy gravel. E, essence of space travel condensed into beverage form. You're my profound grounds, you're my make me louder powder, you're my heavenly ebony pickup juice. You free my voice, you fill my bowels, you loosen up my morning bowel. I need towels if I spill you and you fill my loving cup. And you knock off my socks, you unlock my box, you put oil on the dried wood of my writer's block. Coffee, you've earned first place. Coffee, you give me the energy to still believe in the revolutionary potential of the human race. Coffee, you're the ink blood of the poet's pen. And coffee, you fill the you gild the silver tongues of would-be lovers. For example, when I was in the cafe in Bradford-on-Avon and the girl at the counter was cutting up the extra thick slices of apricot flapjack before turning her back and invoking the mystic gurgle of the percolator. And as I sniffed those cups of hot black shamanic brew, I turned to her and I said, "Oh, you? Yeah, you. You're an angel, you are. You're an angel with wings flecked with flapjack crumbs and filled with cappuccino froth. Let's make love upon your neatly folded pile of serviettes and let's smear each other in the organic mayonnaise for which this establishment is so justly famous." And she gazed down at me through a halo of condensing steam and said, "You again. Get out, and this time don't take our cutlery." Okay, and that one ends there. That's really end in surprising places. Sometimes they're more distinct than others. That one ended there. That's how. Okay, so we're in a shed here. Aren't we? We're in a shed. This is. I'll be doing a poem in a bit about my about the building of this shed during lockdown. But yeah, this is an old poem about a shed. Sheds are important things. I bet there are many of you out there who have or have had at some point a shed. I consider it an incredibly important part of life to have a shed, somewhere you can go. I mean, I've got young children. It's really important. I've got somewhere, the shed, that I can take them to learn, teach them everything that I know about procrastination. This isn't about this shed, this is an older poem. This is a poem written about a shed I had in Brighton on my allotment. I actually had 2 sheds, a small one just for tools and a larger one for dreams. Right, and it had a little gas cooker in that one. Shed. My shed is like a waiting room for heaven, where the useless come to rot in peace. Cans of paint dry out without their lids, seeds shed their vital spark, and spiders shrink to skeletons. In the holy dark of a tired bucket finds a hobby, collecting holes. The tyres on the knackered bike relax and slob themselves across the floor. Grow bags grow old and sod all else. And even the door slumps, hinges groaning like Grandad woken from his kip. Dust, you most despised of refugees, you need no passport here. Come in, make a home, bring your family. Rust, you can start small and build an empire. In my shed, restless ambition is turned back at the border. The tyranny of clocks thrown off in glorious musty exhalation. The sparrows dance a fanfare on the roof. Here the revolution has succeeded. Here I can toast my indolent republic. Here with dreams and room to breathe. Here with coffee cup and hand-rolled fag. I will build Jerusalem. So yeah, that's a shed poem. You like that, didn't you? Okay, yeah, I'm going to do this little show in little segments with little tea breaks. You can have a tea break after the next poem. We might even put up a little thing saying tea break, and then we can start again. I've got to film this in little bits because the camera won't handle the whole thing. So this is we talk about this lockdown. This thing where it's strange times that we've been living in. A lot of people. It's been all right for me because I live out in the country, so I can get out in the country. It's not really been that difficult. But for some people, you've been living in a town, you've been living somewhere, and you're not been able to get out or anything like that. It's been very lonely, been very isolating, and that made me think of other lonely isolating. What could be more lonely and isolating than being trapped in a spaceship, right? And I thought about that because it was the 50th anniversary of the moon landings last year, wasn't it? And I thought about that, and those moon landing spaceships, they went up with 3 people in. Now 2 of them go down to the moon, and I think they have an easier time. All the cameras of the world upon them, the glory, the fame, they've got each other for company. But there's one guy gets left up in the command module, doesn't he, floating around just on his own, and everyone forgets about him. Poor guy up there. On that first moon landing, the Apollo 11, it was Michael Collins was left behind in the spaceship, and I wrote a poem about Michael Collins. If you think this has been hard and lonely, try being Michael Collins in a space capsule. Not so much the Golden Boys, not Neil and Buzz, or moon dust and glory. Michael Collins, the guy who missed out, the space gooseberry, left behind in the rocket ship to disappear around the back of the moon where even the radio gives up on you. I reckon the NASA selection process was rigorous. You'd want the best man for the job, wouldn't you? They'd have trawled small town USA in a blacked out van, hunting down guys who'd had lonely beaten into them with the wrong end of the stick more times than they cared to remember, but somehow keep on keeping on. Even the lonely have their moment to shine. Al Warden, Apollo 15. They'd have found him in a kitchen, twiddling his thumbs as yet another orgy kicked off behind the frat room door. And Goofy Dick Gordon, Apollo 12. He'd have been seen knock-kneed in line every Friday afternoon to boldly be the kid no one wants for the football team. And the others, Ron and Ken and Stu, all of them standing out from the crowd, the awkward ones, bruised and forever knocking the dust off of their trousers. And I reckon those NASA guys in their van, the NASA guys, they'd have punched the air, they'd have high-fived each other. That hot, clear Midwest night, some hot rod jock rocked up and stole the girl off young Michael Collins' arm. Slurps and giggles from behind half-wound Chevrolet glass spoke of giant leaps on uncharted worlds. We've got our man, the NASA guys would have said, as Michael Collins climbed back on his bicycle, raged through tears at the cold, hard face of the moon, and wished to God he was up there. It's a bit of a sad poem. It's a sad poem, that one, but I mean, they can't all be jokes. So yes, that's a little bit of a sad poem about loneliness and isolation and the moon landings. And it is now tea break, and we'll be back after tea break. More poems. Hello again, we're back after tea break. Some more poems. I've been doing this quite a while now, many years. Every so often, every few years, it comes round and you see these articles on the front of the papers. Actually, I say on the front of the paper, tucked away on like page 15 or whatever of the Sunday supplement review section. Every few years it comes out with, is poetry the new rock and roll? That's what you get. Is poetry the new rock and roll? And you know when you see in the paper something that begins with the word is and ends in a question mark, you know that the answer is no. But for a few brief seconds, we get to surf that moment of glory. Because the poet is normally the kind of the lame duck on the golden pond of show business, and you got to milk these moments when you get it. So last time it happened, probably last year I think it was, Guardian Sunday supplement, is poetry the new rock and roll? And I do a lot of readings, a lot of performances, or did, before this latest nonsense. And people would ask me, what's it like? What's it like, mate? What is it like being out there at the cutting edge of the new rock and roll? What's it like, Johnny? What is it like? What's it like? Admittedly, there was the odd person who would say things like, what steps have you taken to look for work in the past fortnight, Mr. Seagrave? But we don't dwell on them, we dwell on the positive. And I started keeping a tour diary. Reportage back from the coal face of the new rock and roll. And here is a poem about that, the new rock and roll. Starts quite loud. The new rock and roll is what I screamed into the face of the lady from the Literature Festival as we sped through the streets of a small Suffolk market town in her clapped-out Nissan Micra. The new rock and roll, and that night at the reading, I think I killed it. The ladies from the book club sighed and nodded, and the girl in the tweed trench coat with eyes as dusty and inviting as the windows of second-hand bookshops. I know. She slammed her head to the rhythms of rustled paper and awkward silence before we all melted off into the night like poems bleeding back into raw ink. The new rock and roll. And then, after the reading, the after party. Back at the B&B. The Lit Fest lady cracks open a yoghurt, lines up the Earl Grey slammers, and the girl with the bookshop eyes leads me to the bed, and as our Nurofen starts kicking in, we lower our heads and lick hobnob crumbs from the plump stomach of a naked librarian. And that's how every reading ends, really. Or it did before this nonsense. It's wild. The wild world of poetry. I'll do another quick one from that same sequence, as what we call it. In the world of rock and roll, bands do concept albums. Poets do a poetry sequence. So from that same sequence of poetry as the new rock and roll, this is a little piece. Some might say possibly slightly more true than the previous piece. There is a librarian in this poem too, not the fantasy librarian we met in the previous poem. We've all got one, haven't we? We've all got one. This is a real librarian. This poem is simply called Gig Library, Stoke-on-Trent. It's what I call like a Ronseal poem. Does what it says on the tin. Gig Library, Stoke-on-Trent. This is a bit more. It is a gig in a library. It's at lunchtime. There's an audience of about 12. Mainly OAPs. There's also the guy who comes into the library every day in the long coat, carrying loads of carrier bags, talking to himself. He's been making a nuisance of himself in the children's section, so they've ushered him in here as well. So that's our gig library, Stoke-on-Trent. The librarian double checks the audience has emptied their bladders. The stair lift's playing up again, and no one wants a repeat of last time, do they? Well, that's one I've got up on you, Jarvis Cocker, isn't it? I bet Iggy Pop never gets told to flag up the induction loop for the hard of hearing. And just you try to picture David Bowie when they show him to the fridge where they put the rider, a Tesco meal deal sandwich and a meal deal bottle of water. The crisps, Bowie would say, coming on all diva. Where's my meal deal crisps? And you picture his face when they inform him that the crisps went to the support act. So yeah, that one ends there. There's a few references to sort of pop stars and stuff in there, but you probably get the general gist. So yeah, I'm going to do another, just sticking with that poetry as rock and roll theme. I spent years worrying how I was going to cope with it when I became famous. I started wearing off a bit now, it has to be said. But I did used to worry, because you'd see famous people, don't you? You always hear famous, you get interviews with famous people, and all they do is complain about how they can't do the things they used to do when they were just normal and anonymous. And just what a miserable existence that is. You know, just long to know the price of milk, or what it's like getting stuck in a tube train that gets stuck in a tunnel, stuff like that. And there used to be this, I used to go and visit my nan, who lived in Hackney in northeast London. I used to catch the bus, the number 38 bus to Clapton Pond. And it was always interesting, because you could always see from that bus, you could see various, it would travel through the sort of back streets of Hackney, and you would come across these various famous people you would see from the bus getting up to their things. You go past a laundrette on the Balls Pond Road, and you'd see Paul McCartney in there. Paul McCartney from the Beatles. You'd notice him, you'd see him through the window, and he's in there because he'd gone in there because he just wants to be able to wash his pants and his vest in the laundrette like a normal person. And he's gone in there. I love that feeling of putting the 20p's into the dryer. You know, it's just a bit. And he's gone in there and he's tried to do that, but of course, no, he's immediately been noticed. People have come flocking over, flashbulbs popping everywhere, everybody pointing at him. And McCartney, you go past, you see from the bus, you see his face, it's a picture of absolute misery. And he's desperately doing that thumbs up thing that Paul McCartney does at people. And yeah, and it's tragic. It's tragic to see. And the bus carries on, and you go past the Mare Street Kebab and Grill, and you see Rod Stewart in there. And Rod Stewart's in there, and all he wants to do, he just wants to go and order a battered saveloy. Just like a normal person. As is his birthright as a Scotsman. He wants to order a battered saveloy. But oh no, the people around him, the flashbulbs are popping. And you see him, his face is pressed against the wall, trying to melt into the background in his leopard skin catsuit and leopard skin high heel boots, hair all up here, and he's just weeping. Yeah, it's tragic. And then you sometimes see this guy as well, who crops up in this poem. I'm on the number 38 to Clapton Pond, and we're just turning off the Balls Pond Road when Mick Jagger comes bounding up the stairs, slumps down in the seat next to me, the Iceland carrier bag clutched to his lap, the revealing lingerie of thin polythene barely concealing the plump oven chips beneath. It's all sexy with Mick, even the frozen goods. The baseball cap pulled down low over his eyes was pointless. I mean, who thinks eyes when they think Mick Jagger? I mean, who does? Did anyone? Do you think? Who does think? What do you think of when you think Mick Jagger? Lips, innit? The lips. The lips. The lips were there for all to see. Lips that slopped around Mick Jagger's face like two fat sausages slapped on a grainy bun by a cocksure teenager. It's Mick's lips, isn't it? Beautiful words. Those lips, that pout, that poise, those legs. There's only one Mick Jagger. And the whole top deck were onto him like wolves. Hey, it's Mick. Wait, look, it's Mick. Come here. Come, look, it's Mick Jagger. It's Mick Jagger on there. Look, it's Mick Jagger. Oh, yeah, Mick. Hey, Mick. Oi, hey, Mick. Hey, Mick. Oi, Mick. Go on, mate. Mick, go on. Say, it's only rock and roll, but I like it. Go on, Mick. Go on. Hey, Mick. Street fighting man. That's about me, that is. Street fighting man. Hey, Mick. Me and my Donny, we first had it off to brown sugar. Hey, Mick. Mick, I got on, Mick. Mick, tell us about Keith and the shepherd's pie. Tell us about, is it true? Does he lose it when you break the crust? Hey, Keith, hey, Mick, Keith, Mick, Mick, and two youths in Chelsea shirts start up with the beery satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction. And when the conductor comes round asking for tickets and passes, he just waves away Mick Jagger's Oyster card, struts off down the aisle, hands on hips. And Mick grabs hold of my hand, like a frightened child grabbing hold of his mother. And when I say, I'm sorry, mate, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I wake up each morning and I don't mean anything to anyone. And Mick just looks at me. He just looks at me, and a single hot tear falls from Michael Philip Jagger's unremarkable eyes and melts a tiny pure river through the frost on his oven chips. That's the end of that. That's the end of that one. That's the end of that one. That's the end of the rock and roll sequence. I think. What should we do? Let's turn it back. Let's go for something completely different now. Wrong season, really. This poem is either a little bit early or very late. It's a poem I wrote in autumn. Actually, I wrote in autumn. I got my little children, and this poem was written on the occasion of my little boy starting school, first day at primary school. And you see them out there in their uniform, looking ever so proud. But it's quite sad because up until that moment, they've just been entirely yours, and this is where the world takes hold of them for the first time and takes them away. And it's a bit sad. And it made me think of all the other leaving homes. It is autumn. Summer has burned itself out in a crisp yellow fanfare, and today my 4-year-old son starts school. Full of himself in his uniform, stepping from us into the world, and I'm proud. I'm proud and I'm sad. And all along the street, small children are heading for school, posing on the doorsteps for the proud, sad cameras of their parents. Teenagers are going off to schools and colleges. And above my garden, the rain is leaving its cloud parents, heading for that strange green land below, dive bombing into fertile uncertainty. Some raindrops will find work in the roots of my plants. Some raindrops will have a great time, partying together in the puddles of the alleyway. Some raindrops will simply evaporate, and some raindrops have got an ocean ahead of them. Now, if you're a young child or a teenager or a raindrop falling towards the future, the world is a fresh and exciting place. And my boy steps from the house onto the path, looking up at the wet sky. How do I tell which bits are raindrops leaving home and which bits are the bereft tears of the clouds? Little sad poem. Little sad poem there, I like to think. Okay, we're going to have a little tea break time. Flash up the tea break, and we'll be back in just a moment with more poems. Okay, so here we are back with the final segment of poetry from me. What should we have? Oh yeah, I'm going to start with a little poem just about this space, about this shed. I mentioned this earlier. In that I built this during this lockdown thing. It's kept me sane. This poem was commissioned by Poetry on Loan, which is an organisation I do a lot of work for, specialises in putting poetry into libraries, beautiful places, the one last bastion of doing something good for your fellow human without any financial recompense. That's the only place you can still walk into without any expectation on you to spend money. Anyway, they commissioned this. This is about what I've been up to in lockdown. It's been lovely, actually. Yeah, because, it says it in the poem. I built a shed. I've been meaning to build a shed for ages, but I never had the time. And right now I don't have much, but I do have time. So I built myself a shed. All this slowing down has brought the neighbourhood out into their gardens. We're blinking in daylight like blitzed cockneys the morning the bombs stopped falling. The weight of clocks is lifted from our shoulders, and we share the time of day, and then after a bit we started sharing surplus building materials that we found we had kicking about, and I built a shed. The wood, I had that already. The 38 sheets of corrugated tin, they came from the recluse guy, living 5 doors up with his mum in a house that smells of sad wallpaper and vim. Handed over fences at the regulation social distance with gloves and masks and chat about the quiet of the street, now that Alan Burkitt's Land Rover's been grounded. I built myself a shed. And in so doing, I did myself a series of minor injuries. Metal cuts, splinters, and once from trying to saw while reading a Beano strip upside down to a 6-year-old. My partner, a nurse, is less sympathetic since my morning angle grinding metal after her night shift. And I've been made to clap louder on Thursdays now. I built a shed. I built a shed because I cannot escape a pandemic virus, but I can, with a little bit of hard graft, escape my own family. Somewhere I can watch the rain fall and await a future where we can all get back to being how we were in the not so distant past. I built a shed, and it's my tin palace. 3 doors up, I hear a woman say that it looks like something out of a Caribbean shantytown. But seeing as she's locked down with loud reggae on all day long, I'll take that comment as positive. And that's the end of that one. That's that's my little poem about what I've been up to on lockdown. I'm going to finish off now with a couple of poems from youngerhood to childhood. Not necessarily childhood, just being younger. In the past, my parents, basically, poems about my parents. What should we start? I'm going to start with, I'm going to do a little one about becoming a vegetarian at the age of about 10. Fallen off the wagon since, I'm ashamed to admit, but if anyone has ever had a child turn vegetarian, that kind of thing, this is about that. It's a thank you poem to a small dead rainbow trout. I was turned vegetarian by an experience in Scotland. We went on holiday to Scotland when I was 10 and stayed in a little off-season rented cottage. And I was moaning to my dad. I just said, I want to go fishing. I want to learn fishing. And my dad tried to humour me. He just made me like a Dennis the Menace. We just literally string with a hook on the end, and we went out on a boat, and there was no aspiration on my dad's part to go, and I accidentally caught something, but it caught it quite. Didn't catch it in the mouth. It just sort of. Anyway, turned me vegetarian. Thank you poem to a small dead trout. Thank you, small rainbow trout skewered through the eye. Family holiday, Scotland, summer 1979. Small trout twitching on my fishing line. Thank you, trout, for your slow and somewhat painful death. Flip, flop, flipping, fighting for breath in the bilge of a hired rowing boat as I recoiled from the razor rain, crunching custard creams, and Dad battered you with an oar, screaming, "Don't just sit there, boy, help me make it die!" That night, trout, you swam through my dreams, your hanging off eye a gleam in the ocean of night, a malevolent oyster, your inner tube pouting mouth, intoning in the groaning still. You killed me. Thanks, trout. Thanks to you, I had to wake Dad 2 in the morning, the warning signs of restrained violence etched on his yawning face, as I demand your removal from the fridge and your burial in the heather on this rain-lashed Scottish ridge immediately. And trout, it's thanks to you I could say, I will never eat flesh again. As I pulled my Star Wars dressing gown tight around my skinny frame in our Thompson budget holiday cottage kitchen. As my old man dragged on Mum's pack-a-mac and swore off into the side sleet rain, Mudmire dark, to intern his erstwhile Sunday dinner. And when he returned, soaked and edgy to the holy glow of his born-again veggie son, I thought, Dad, I know you've lost a pleasant meal, but I feel we've gained something greater than a plate of fish. Today we stared death in the face, Dad, and it felt bad. I felt that fish's pain. What right have we to hold dominion over life and death, eh? And I said, I cannot kill again, Dad. Can you, Dad? Can you? And Dad, he said, son, don't tempt me. Yeah, that's the end of that one. Okay, yeah. So this is the final poem. Now, this is about my mum. My mum died about 14 years ago now, and this poem was written very shortly after she had died. I don't know if anybody out there is a controlling mother, would class themselves as that, have been a controlling mother. Perhaps you had a controlling mother. Whenever I do a reading and I do this poem, I always ask, does anyone have a controlling mother? And you always get like 1 or 2 people put their hands up, but you know there were more had controlling mothers, but they're not going to put their hands up in case Mum finds out. But I find when I do the poem, you get loads of people coming up afterwards and going, oh yeah, that rings a, yeah. Anyway, this is my final poem, and I thank you so much for sitting there and listen. I hope it's been of some value, even if it's just passed the time or has reminded someone to make you a cup of tea. This is a poem called Towels. The day you died, I fetched myself a towel from the airing cupboard, unassisted by yourself. Unassisted by yourself. I fetched myself a towel without regard to category of towel, or to size of towel, or to function of towel, hand towel, bath towel, tea towel, etc. And with no concern for whether the towel matched the batch of towels in current bathroom stroke downstairs toilet circulation. I fetched myself a towel without concern for whether the towel might show small signs of baldness, or whether it was a frayed towel or a worn towel, or whether it was a towel habitually assigned to a certain member of the family, or whether it was a towel reserved for athlete's foot sufferers, or to dry the paws of a dog you had put down 6 years ago, or whether it was a towel reserved for guests, or a towel saved for the chance visit of passing royalty, or a towel intended as peace offering from humankind for first contact with a benign but inexplicably damp alien race. Without regard for any of this, I fetched myself a towel from the airing cupboard without completely wrecking the neatness, and without breaking anything, I fetched myself a towel at random. And it felt like an act of liberation and somehow of betrayal. So that's the final poem there. Yeah, I look, I've been Jonny Fluffypunk. They're not very warm. As look, I brought my own applause. Okay, just create a little bit of atmosphere for myself, if nobody else. So yeah, have a lovely time. Enjoy the rest of your day. As I say, I don't know whether it's morning, evening or afternoon where you are, but enjoy what's left of it. And thank you very much for listening.